We are live.
Thank you, Raju. Hello and welcome everyone for joining us today for the panel discussion on buffering democracy, India and its internet shutdowns. This panel discussion is organized by Software Freedom Law Center India, which is a digital rights organization working on FOSS, privacy, intermediary liability, freedom of speech and expression, and internet shutdowns. SFLC.in has been running India's only internet shutdowns tracker since 2012, which you can find on internetshutdowns.in. Internetshutdowns.in maintains a tracker which has recently been revamped to make it more comprehensible to aid the research and advocacy against internet shutdowns. A shutdown tracker can now drill down to districts to show an exact picture of how deep the water is. The new website also attempts to build documentation of the harms caused by the kill switch by presenting the public's voices, recounting the absolute horrors of the shutdowns. We will be playing a short trailer to give you a glimpse of the documentary on internet shutdowns that SFLC.in would be releasing tomorrow. For the panel today, Buffering Democracy, India and its Internet Shutdowns, we have with us a distinguished set of panelists and moderator. Our moderator for the day is Mr. Meghnad, who is an associate editor with News Laundry. Meghnad is the author of the book Parliamental and has hosted a series to simplify the working of the Indian government called Constitution. We would be giving you a glimpse of the movies in form of the trailer now, and then Meghnad would be taking over the discussion and introducing the panelists. Welcome, everyone.
26 January 2012. Even as the country celebrated its status as a free and sovereign republic, there were severe restrictions that were placed on the usage of internet in the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir.
The desire to control is universal. The authorities everywhere would like to have control. Whether it is the control over the free flow of information, or about the narrative, or about what you and I would call free speech and expression and right to dissent or right to offend.
Largely dominated by mobile internet users, India is the second largest country-wise market in the world. It also happens to lead every other country in terms of the number of internet shutdowns imposed every year. The durations of these blockades is entirely arbitrary, ranging from 24 hours to 552 days. Oddly enough, records related to these shutdowns are not maintained by either the Department of Telecom or the Ministry of Home Affairs.
There was no space also to counter what the government was trying to say. So all these things contributed to creating a very, very sinister situation on the ground. And that, I think, is something that we are still unable to process.
Hello everyone. Hello, I am Meghnad. Thank you for joining today on this what is balmy evening today in Delhi. We fortunately have the internet to talk to each other, but I think just 2 days ago, internet was again shut down in Kashmir, which keeps happening. We are going to talk about that a bit. But more than that, I want to take you through the flow of this session first and also introduce the guests. What we are going to attempt today are just three simple things. First is we will go into how the internet is shut down. So we have a few lawyers to tell us what the legal process is. Then we will go to what happens when the internet is shut down. So we have we have a journalist from Kashmir. We have members of parliament who will talk about the impact of an internet shutdown, and then finally I will open up the floor to why the internet is shut down, where we can talk about the reason behind these internet shutdowns as we are seeing. I would recommend you go to internetshutdowns.in, which is the website maintained by SFLC, which has a great tracker of how many events have happened in the since 2012 till now, about how much internet has been shut down throughout India, essentially, state-wise. So please do take a look at that. I will be reading out a few figures from that every once in a while. But to begin with, I would like the panel to introduce themselves, starting with Vrinda Grover. Vrinda, you're mute.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Meghnad, and thank you to SFLC for inviting me here. I look forward to this evening's discussion. I am a lawyer based in New Delhi and with a keen interest in issues relating to human rights.
Thank you, Vrinda. I will now go to Fahad. Fahad.
Yeah, hi. My name is Fahad Shah. I'm the editor and founder of the magazine The Kashmir Wala, and I'm based in Srinagar. And thank you for this discussion, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Prashant. You're muted, Prashant.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Prashant Sugadan. I'm a lawyer. Work mostly on constitutional law and technology law, and I'm a legal director at sflc.in.
So we have two lawyers and one journalist from Kashmir, I must add, important. Then we have two members of parliament, Dr. Amar Patnaik. Hello. Hi.
Hi, Meghnad. Thank you so much for inviting me to SLFC. Look forward to the discussions. As you know, I've been a member of the Joint Committee on Data Protection, and the most talked about provision, Section 35 of exemptions, and many of these things are going to feature in today's discussions as well. And look forward to the discussions. I have formed some view of mine relating to this issue, which has been coming up quite often, which I will probably get to express during the discussions, and maybe, think about, since Manoj, my good friend Manoj Jhaji is also here, we could actually take it forward in the parliament.
Right. Professor Jha?
Yeah, thank you, Meghnad. Thank you, SFLC. Thank you, all my co-panelists. I'm Manoj. I'm a member of parliament later, but I'm primarily a teacher in Delhi University, Department of Social Work. Looking forward. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. To begin with, I have a view on internet shutdowns that it shouldn't be shut down. That's it. That's my view. And because everything is so dependent on the internet, and as we have seen during the pandemic, we were very dependent on the internet because everybody was locked in. Everything was happening over the internet. So even for minimal social interactions, we had to depend on the internet. And when a situation like this comes, it just makes you realize how important the internet is for our just daily lives and delivery of services. Our entire financial networks work on it now. Just everything works on it now. So I just wanted to start off this small discussion with how the internet is shut down, right? So we essentially know that the internet is shut down. Every once in a while we hear a news ki farmers protest ho gaya, usme shut down kar diya, to prevent untoward things from happening. Then Kashmir mein every other day the internet is shut down for whatever reason. There have been cases where some wrestling matches were happening and some cheating might happen in exams, so the internet was shut down. So literally there are random reasons why the internet is shut down. Now I can say that safely. So I will actually start with Vrinda. Vrinda, can you just tell us how the internet is shut down?
Okay, thanks. So I'll just, before I get into the technical aspects of the law, I'm very glad to hear you have such a clear position on the internet shutdown, because it's very rare nowadays for people to foreground their rights without saying, oh, but the state can have all this, and oh, but we are living in difficult times. So I'm glad that we are beginning on a note where we are saying rights are fundamental and restrictions we will discuss and see where they come in our life. So thank you for this opportunity. So how does the internet get shut down, and who? Of course, the switch is in the hands of the state, as power and authority usually is. However, this power and authority is not something that we have given a blank check to the state. Any power, any authority with the state is only subject to our rights as in chapter 3 of the Constitution, the fundamental rights. The actual power here is coming from the Indian Telegraph Act of 1885. Rules were formed in 2017. They were notified by the government, called the Temporary Suspension of Telecom Services, Public Emergency and Public Safety Rules. Please keep in mind the word temporary. In Kashmir, in 2019, when the shutdown happened, it crossed over 100 days. We would need a new definition for the word temporary. It had lost all meaning.
So SFLC website says 552 days.
That's not in one continuous thing.
Right.
So
overall.
Yeah, from January 2021, they started reintroducing in dribs and drabs. So the kill switch switches off in one go, but it never restores it fully in one go. So in 2017, these rules were notified. The rules actually lay down a 3-tier process of an officer who has the power to pass an order with reasons, saying switch it off, whichever area, saying what is to be switched off, which aspect of the internet. Is it data? Is it mobile phone? Is it SMS service? What are you switching off? And for what reason? And where? And for how long? Then there is a competent authority, which is usually the secretary, either state secretary home or union secretary home, and a review committee, which consists of senior government officials who will then review. There is a strict time frame where this has to be all done within a span of 24 hours confirmation, and then within 5 days, the review committee. When I filed the Anuradha Bhasin petition, Anuradha Bhasin being the editor of Kashmir Times, and I'm sure we'll hear much more from Fahad, in August 2019, as we know, and irony died that day, as we were, the government of India said they were integrating Kashmir into the democracy and the Democratic Republic of India. The internet was shut down and all manner of communication was shut down, leaving the people of the valley and most parts of Jammu into a complete and absolute information black hole. Yeah. So things which were impacting their lives, and their life was being changed with this shift in the constitutional arrangement, they were left out of that public conversation. In fact, they were neither to receive information nor participate in anything. This was an internet shutdown which actually went even up to landlines. So no form of communication. David Kay, the then UN Special Rapporteur on the subject, actually said this is the longest and most intense internet shutdown that any democracy in the world had ever exercised. So we do rank in certain lists for sure. When we challenge this, well, I'll just come quickly to what the issues that were raised, and if I may permit it, just to illustrate this with the orders, because that's what we are trying to understand. So yes, there is a power. You have, and the rules notify how it is to be exercised. However, the power is never absolute, and this is the question that the court posed to itself in the Anuradha Bhasin petition, and then declared that are these powers, have they been exercised validly? And they declared that the medium of internet, when it is used for purposes of freedom of speech and expression, which as we know includes freedom of press, as well as freedom to practice your profession, business, trade, they said the medium of the internet, when used for these purposes, enjoys constitutional protection. This was a declaration made in the judgment.
Brinda, I will have to interrupt you there for just a second, because I also wanted sort of Prashant to come in here and also explain one thing. I had a very simple question. So now, as Rinda said, that
Can
certain
I
officers.
finish this sentence? I'll just finish this sentence.
Oh yeah, sure.
Then Prashant can come in.
Yeah.
So they said that yes, this is a constitutional right. The minute it's constitutionally protected, the restrictions on it will then be tested through reasonableness and proportionality. So if the orders are arbitrary, unending, with no time frame, passed by wrong authorities, no reasons, then those orders will not stand scrutiny and will have to be dumped. Interestingly, the temporary suspension of telecom rules had no provision that for how long can you suspend the internet. Only when the Supreme Court pushed the government, they subsequently, in November 2020, brought in an amendment saying maximum period of 15 days at a stretch.
I just wanted to come to Prashant and take Vrinda's point forward, actually, because I'm very interested to know what happens when, say, an order is made to shut down the internet, and what happens when a telecom company does not obey. Has there been a situation where the telecom company has not obeyed, or is there some sort of penalty on them? What happens exactly?
I mean, to be honest, I don't think they have an issue of a telecom company not obeying an order. I think they have been more than willing to comply, and there are stringent conditions if you look at the DOT licenses. So any orders from the government, any provisions in the rule, they are bound to comply with it. The one issue that we find is, although Vrinda mentioned these rules, we find that often the government authorities do not follow these rules. And when you said specifically about telecom companies, now the biggest problem that we have when these orders are issued, this is not even communicated to the public. Suddenly your internet doesn't work, and that's it. You don't know what happened. There is no communication by means of an SMS. In some cases they do it, but most of it's not done.
Again, but the irony is that the internet is shut down, and then it's put up on the internet that your internet has been shut down. So like nobody even knows. So yeah,
right. Yeah, and again, if you look at the rules specifically, it says that, as Vrinda said, it has to be issued by an officer at the secretary level, either at the state level, the state home secretary, or the union home secretary. But what happens is, and in emergent cases, it can be done by an officer not below the level of a joint secretary. But we have seen so many cases when it is issued by somebody at a district magistrate level, who is much below the rank of a joint secretary. So these are not followed in practice at all. Again, the rules say there has to be a reasoned order. Again, you don't find that. We don't know why the internet is shut down. Sometimes it's like a one-line kind of an order. Sometimes it's not very clear what is the reason for doing it. And why was there no other option open to you? Why did you go for this? Again, there is a review committee which has to meet like within the time span of 5 working days. That also doesn't happen now. We have written to the government many times. We have filed RT applications asking them to tell us whether the meetings under the review committee happen. Most often, all these RT applications are rejected. They don't give us any response at all. And these review committee meetings, they're supposed to decide whether these orders were passed as per law, as per Section 5.2 of the Telegraph Act, whether there were conditions which demanded such shutdown. But these are not often done at all. Again, when these shutdowns are ordered, these are not at all proportional. This is often the first tool in the arsenal that the government authorities use. But that is not how it should be. Even as
what do you mean when you say it's not proportional?
So this has to be the last resort. So you are shutting down the internet, affecting free speech rights of citizens. It has huge issues, whether it is on a cost-wise for business or human rights-wise for the citizens.
Yeah.
So when you're making such a decision which affects the rights of citizens, this has to be the last thing that you do. Have you looked at other ways in which maybe there are issues, there's some dissent, there is some unrest happening, some law and order situation, but is this the solution? Is internet shutdown the solution for that? Have you looked at other options? But that is where the principle of proportionality comes in, which has been explained by the Supreme Court in the Anuradha Basin judgment. But often we don't find that. This is the
Right.
easiest thing to do, shut down the internet. I mean, it's just one switch. As you rightly said, it's a kill switch.
Yeah.
And that's the easiest thing to
Essentially,
do.
it's a kill switch for a lot of rights, fundamental rights, which
Right.
is essentially
Exactly.
yeah. And Prashant, if I may ask you one more question about this, can I challenge? So essentially, say for instance, and somewhere I'm in Delhi and the internet is shut down, and say I miss a job interview right now, right?
Right.
Or I can't scan my Aadhaar, for instance, to get like services. Can I personally challenge that, saying that this has affected me?
See, in fact, as an organization, we had challenged internet shutdowns in many cases before the various high courts. And see, what happens in most of these cases is that it's shut down. I mean, except in let's say cases like that of Kashmir, it's shut down for like a short period, maybe 1 day up to 5 days. For example, there was a case where we approached the Calcutta High Court. That was for a 5 day period. But by the time the case comes up, then the government says, okay, we are going to now restore the
Right.
internet. Same happened with Delhi when the Delhi shutdown was. Then we approached the High Court. By then, the internet was restored. Then it says the court often feels like more of an academic exercise. Then the
But the
question that
loss
you
has
asked about
happened,
the
right? Like
yes, the
my
question
loss has
that you asked
happened.
about exactly. So where there is a loss cost, then the Greek courts would say, okay, then if there is a loss, maybe you file a suit.
Hmm.
You approach the civil court, and all of us know how easy that is.
Yeah.
Approach a suit with damage, I mean civil court with damages.
Fair. I'm going to go to Fahad next to answer my very big next question, which is what happens after the internet is shut down. He's from Kashmir, so I think he is one of the most experienced people here who knows what really happens when the internet is shut down. So, Fahad, can you just tell us what is the first thing that you worry about?
Well, as Vrinda was pointing out that the last internet shutdown was pretty major in 2019. It was not just the internet. It was just like we woke up on 5th of August and we found ourselves without any communication at all. There was no landline, no phones, not even cable television. I got to know about abrogation of Article 370 at around 11 in the day when I walked outside on the street and a shopkeeper was shouting on the road and he was saying, they have removed it, they have removed it. We had no idea what was happening. And then we did not know at all what to do because as a journalist, the next thing you do is you mail your editors, you try to contact, you're like, what story can be done? And we run a local publication, so that was completely shut because everything had to be done on internet. We had to publish on internet. So the first thing that we did on that 5th of August was that we just went to the press club, to the city center, and we thought we'll just find out where are the other people, what are they doing, if we can find someone there. And then that's how it started. We started meeting at particular place in press club. Then we started going here and there looking for internet. It was like, looking for water in desert, for 5-15 minutes can we get internet. Like I remember myself, I have literally begged a shopkeeper near the airport and told him, can you just give me 2 minutes of internet, I just want to mail this particular file somewhere, because it was working near the airport. But then the government started the media center, and I would mention media center because initially there were just 4 computers and there was an internet line, and there was a particular timing from morning 10 or something till evening 7 or 8. But you remember there was this one judgment that came in the case that they were fighting in with Anuradha's case, and then the government responded to one of the questions. The government told the court that, but they have all the services. The internet is functioning there in that center, and they are there to work till 11.
Hmm.
And that day when we went to the center, and we suddenly found out that, oh, today we can work till 10. And we asked them, what happened today? They were like, no, no, this is just a new order, you have to now it's open till 10, because they had realized that the government has told this to court, now we have to do
Right.
that. And then they increased the computers also. But there is a theory that the government always gives when it comes to internet shutdowns. Even today, when they shut it in a particular place like Pulwama, it was shut down just 2 days ago, or Shupian. is that there are people who connect and it could give rise to the protests or anti-national
Hmm.
elements. But what we have found on ground as a person who is here is that internet really does not impact any kind of protest in Kashmir. That's what we have seen. Because I'll give you an example. In 2016, when Burhan Wani was killed on 8th of July, the first thing that the government did on 9th was that internet was shut. There was cell phones were not working in South Kashmir. But still, on that day, you saw massive protests everywhere in Kashmir. You saw several civilians getting killed in those protests. And in the days that following days, there were a lot of protests that happened. So, how did those protests happen? Obviously, people did not organize them over landline phones or going to one and each other's house and telling them, "Let's come out to protest." So internet used to be like the medium of venting out and saying things out there, but the way that people are being dealt with in terms of the internet and in terms of digital activism that has been going on in Kashmir, there have been several cases in the recent 2 years. Wherever you put something, you put out a tweet, you get called by police or you get told what are you doing. There are FIRs filed against tweets. There is a UAPA cases, two of the UAPA cases filed against two journalists over the tweets that they had made.
Yeah.
But as when the internet is gone, the obviously the basic things that happen is which has happened in the last year in 2020 was the first thing. The casualty was education, because the
Yeah.
whole world was online education, and in Kashmir you had 2G. And as much as you screaming, you were saying, students were saying, we can't buffer this, we can't use this on our internet, the government would always say, oh no, but it's working fine for us. What are you saying? Everything is working fine, it shouldn't be a problem. That is the one thing, that is education, because it's not the same the way we used to be in school, we didn't have internet. But now, from an assignment to online classes to everything, what you use is the internet. And the other thing that happened during the pandemic was that a lot of these doctors and a lot of these groups that the doctors run were useless. They were not
Hmm.
able to use those groups. There's a very interesting group, Save Heart initiative, which you must have read in the media, that initiative was completely defunct because they were not able to use it. There was no internet. There are a lot of doctors who use studies, who connect to other senior doctors outside. They try to consult them. That was also not happening. And obviously, the press, as we know, is all happening right now through online. Is digital journalism world. There is no more. The print does not really do that much as much as it is happening through online.
Yeah.
So I think internet, the shutdown of in Kashmir, in a way, it is also a kind of censorship, because you remember in 2020 there was a particular number of websites that were allowed on those connections.
I think, Fahad, your internet is
Yeah,
slow.
sorry.
Your internet is cutting off a little bit.
See, that's Kashmir. This is
See,
the
this is what
this
happens.
is the
Fahad, this
corporate
is what
internet
happens.
line that we're using. When the 4G was restored, I remember people saying that this doesn't even look like 4G. Are they really like they have restored 2.5G perhaps, and we
Yeah.
have been told that 4G has been restored. So there are a lot of these situations, and in the recent times also, when the internet is shut down in Pulwama and in Shupian or other places, so it is also becoming irritating now. Like you don't really know that you will have internet for 5 days, and you have, like, let's say, last day to apply for something, and
Hmm.
these incidents have happened. People have missed their online classes, people have missed their exams online. I know people who have missed, people have missed filing some important applications online because there was no internet on that particular day. And that's what happens, because and you also don't know who to reach out to. Like, I'll tell you, as journalists, we try to find out who is writing these orders, who is the person we should go to and check, because the orders that come out, it says there's a IAS officer whose name is
Yeah.
written there, and he issues the order. And these orders are very interesting. I remember in 2020, I think 144 orders were issued for internet shutdown or extension of internet shutdown. So sometimes it's mentioned that the trying to instigate people in Kashmir. Sometimes it says that the number of people coming out during the elections or in particular activities is higher. So we have called these orders or orders of absurd because we don't really know what they mean by this. And I think the government has
Faz,
never been able to prove that what the internet shutdown really does.
right. And you mentioned a very interesting point that when the internet is shut down, a lot of services are affected. I'm also wondering if vaccination gets affected, right? Because the internet, I mean, COVID app works on the internet. So, have you seen anything of that sort in Kashmir where people are not able to book their slots or finding it difficult to vaccinate themselves?
Well, I don't know any particular cases as such in Srinagar because in Srinagar it hasn't been shut. But
Hmm.
obviously, in the areas like Pulwama or Shopian, when the internet is shut, even though it is for the day, so of course, obviously, during that day, your app will not work, your any other services will not work, and you can't even. So I remember people, some of the students in Pulwama, who told me that they are the students of DU or other universities in other parts of the country, and they were like, we had exams and we could not sit for the exams because our internet was shut and we did not know that we'll wake up and internet will not be working. So there are a lot of reasons, there are a lot of issues that people face, but I think somewhere along the along on in this time, people have also started feeling this is normal because when you have
Yeah.
internet shut down for months long, and people are starting feeling like it's like a thing that, oh, it's not as bad as it was in 2019. At least it's working in Srinagar, or at least the 2G is working. So it has reached to a point where whatever little internet you can get, even if it's your WhatsApp is working, that means a lot at one point of time. But you can't really be sure when the internet will be shut down.
So I just wanted to give a few figures to those who are watching. So in 2020, there were 129 total shutdowns in India, and one of the estimates says that there was a loss of around 2.8 billion dollars because of it. And India was the country which faced the most economic losses due to internet shutdowns. And to give you a comparison, this year it's Myanmar. So because obviously there's a coup going on and there's no internet there, but like compared to that, there is a country that where a coup is going on, and there is us where, well, pretty much everything is working, but still our government decides to shut down the internet whenever it wants. So the question now I would like to pose our members of parliament here is, why do you do it? Why does the government do it? Like, I mean, that's what. So like, how is done? What happens is done. Now you guys answer why. I'll first go to Professor Jha. Do you want to go first? Muted, sir.
Extremely sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Go
Thank you very much for that question. And you said why you do it. I certainly don't do it.
ahead.
I,
Yeah.
I
The system does it, sir, and you are a
no,
part of the system.
for that way, I'll recommend you. I wrote a piece for Indian Express, Dear System G, during the COVID times. So anyway, Meghnad, what I think first point I'll make: democracies, elections take place, things appear normal, as you also said that, or otherwise we are doing well, pretty well. But the appearance is that we are doing well. We are witnessing a majoritarian state, but a very weak state by character, very insecure state. I'll give you one example. When Article 370 was being abrogated, some of us, and I was probably one of them, who had warned the government, and I even had drawn the metaphor that why do you wish to convert it into a Palestine like situation? I was ridiculed in the media, the mainstream media, that I'm drawing that kind of parallel. But nobody saw that in Kashmir. Nobody came to know. I have lots of students from Delhi University who are teaching in Kashmir or are working in Kashmir. There was this person whose daughter is doing MBBS, was doing MBBS in Bangladesh. He came to Delhi after a couple of days, and couple I mean 15, 20 days or a month. He wrote an email to me that today I saw your video. I had come to Delhi to get connected to my daughter who is in Bangladesh. Now, that tells you the narrative of what happens with such internet shutdown, which is actually information shutdown, which I will call it information blackout. Ironically, I think Prashantji and Brinda, they know it better. But ironically, the same government which keeps telling everywhere that the situation is normal. Kashmir is normal. I mean, just draw that parallel that members of Indian Parliament wanted to visit Kashmir and we were detained at the airport, detained in a very pleasurable sense within quotes. We were detained at the airport, not like average Kashmiri, what they face on a daily basis. At the same time, the government could conduct a tour of European Union members of parliament.
Yeah.
They went to Dal Lake, they had all beautiful photographs, and they tried to tell the world, and an internet world, that all is well in Kashmir. Now, why I'm emphasizing this, that this happened in Kashmir, this is happening in Kashmir time and again. Now, unless a state, a democratic state, realize that it is not a piece of paper, a map, it's about relationship, it's about living beings, it's about engagement, it's about continuous conversation. I must tell you, all these things, probably with the new parliament building, for looking for democratic conversation, democratic engagement, you will have to go to the old parliament building, because that shall museumize I don't mean everything was rosy before 2014. I don't subscribe to that theory, but it has acquired a pattern. A state which believes that majority through electoral votes is a kind of license to usher into majoritarian posture. I think unless that gets that gets challenged, and again, Brinda ji, Prashant ji, they fight a lot. There are many lawyers, many activists, they are hopes for us, but this is a political battle. It is a political battle.
Absolutely.
And because it is a political battle, I think whether Amarji and lot many other parliamentarians who are not on your panel, we need to convey it, engage in conversation, and tell this government also, please boss, you perceive yourself very weak, insecure, please come out of your insecurity, things will be better. Thank you. These are my initial remarks, Meghna.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go to Dr. Patnaik to ask the same question, but then I will rephrase it a little bit. Why does the state government do it? Essentially, I have seen that Odisha has also had a few cases of shutting down the internet since 2012. There are 5 cases. Why would your government do it, or why would any state government do it? Let's not. I'm just looking at it very objectively.
Right. Happy that you asked this question. Okay, let me. I'm minded of my days in the bureaucracy. My first posting was in the Northeast, in Shillong, in 1992. I stayed there for 4 years. In a week, at least 3 days, there would be curfew there. A public curfew would be there. The same public curfew would not be there in Bhubaneswar and Orissa, where I belong to. So when I'm just putting some issues together, then we'll think about how to address it. So when we are doing physical, the section 144 curfew, physical movement of people was being restricted. Even we did it during the pandemic in several areas. But we don't do it. What is happening in J&K or in the Northeast is not happening all over India. So to put everything together in one canvas for the size of a country of 1.3 billion, and geography is very diversely different and facing different problems. For example, as you said, in Orissa, what is happening in, let's say, Bhadrak, where it was done because of, let's say, Hindu-Muslim clash, they were fearing there would be a clash, is not happening in Bhubaneswar. So putting together everything under the same one-size-fits-all kind of a thinking will not really, address this problem. So when the government is doing this, whether it is the central government or the state government, the context why it is doing it is important. And more important, and which is missing, I think that's where the crux of the problem is. What is the purpose? What is the statement of purpose? What is the objective for which it is doing? And whether that has rational nexus with the purpose that is to be achieved, which you were saying is, then it follows the proportionality, necessity, adequacy, all these things would follow. Whether that particular purpose is well set out. Now, if you look at the telegraph, since I was a part of the bureaucracy, if you look into telephone tapping, if you look into other aspects and so on, I think there is a systemic flaw. The flaw is, first of all, I still believe that India needs to have this well laid out legislated surveillance law. We don't have it. Now, once, even under the current dispensation, the review committee which looks into the decision taken by the Home Secretary or whatever, it doesn't have any, why do you have to go in each individual case to the Supreme Court or the High Court and get it judicially reviewed? I think at the review committee stage itself, there could have been some kind of a quasi-judicial authority, institutional mechanism, which could have reviewed it very fast and can shut it down. Now, when there is an independent review mechanism, I think the first thing that they would ask is, what is the purpose that you're trying to achieve in Kashmir or in Shillong or in Orissa or in Bhadra, whatever. Now, when this purpose is not clear, that's where the problem comes. How much is proportional, how much is necessity? Now, if you look at I was doing this there all over, there are 5 excuses. There are 5 basic excuses. That is national security, elections, protests, school exams, and visit by government officials. Obama visiting India. Right? Now, I'll go in a very systematic way to say that some of these excuses should actually be not there at all and can't be admissible at all. So let's remove them. 1, exams. 2nd, visit by government officials. I think let's remove them. Yeah. So, because the idea is that to narrow it down as much as possible. And therefore, the best thing is to have a law. Best thing is to have an independent review mechanism. But assuming that I am the lawmaker and I'm removing these 2, now let's look at the 3: national security, elections, and protests. National security is something in which there's an assessment of the security scenario done, which a lot of it is confidential. We can't really get into it unless the courts get into it, and they should go to the court. But when the internet shutdown, which is equivalent to it's a fundamental right, so there has to be reasonable restrictions, 19.2. But whether those reasonable restrictions are having a nexus with the purpose that is to be achieved. Now, protest. Now, that's where the quarrel is. Public order. Now, the same public order word has been used in Section 35 in the Personal Data Protection Bill as well. Yeah. In the bill form, what you finally see after our recommendations is we are all waiting to see how it gets introduced finally. But this protest that is to maintain public order. What is the public order? Or what is the challenge to the public order? Could be a communal clash, could be dissent, could be some of those areas. The whole problem is neither the Supreme Court. I'm very careful while saying it. Neither the Supreme Court nor the executive have come out with clear guidelines as to what should be interpreted as a disturbance to public order. And I think the time has now come. Of course, Vrindaji, because of the that court, that last judgment, things got kind of centered as regards the right of people to access internet. It's like a freedom of speech and all that is fine, constitutionally guaranteed. But these reasonable restrictions, which is what the government usually refers to, And I said I'm not really having too much of quarrel with national security, but I have quarrels when it is about elections, when it is about protests, and much more about protests. Because the Supreme Court has held that protests are a part of democracy. Not only Supreme Court, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights everywhere, the covenants also have held. So this public order and the government, let's say, the intention could be to quell this dissent, and that is what is happening. So I think it's high time that the three aspects of a guideline could be what should be the purpose, what would be what are the, as someone said, what are the alternatives, what is the minimum intrusive least intrusive restriction, what are the candidate systems. Somebody can say, okay, I only looked at these two candidate systems and I think this is very good. There's no review. So these candidate systems have to be looked into. I think it's high time. There's some amount of guidelines. So that is why I said, Manojji, when I said that I think the parliament, who will make these guidelines? It is either the court or the parliament. Now the problem is there's no law. And I've written in the wire, and you can see it, that the need for a surveillance law in India.
Also, I have to interrupt you here because this very interesting thing that I found out, that the last time someone asked, I think one of the MPs asked the government how many shutdowns have there been. The government responded saying there is no record because it's a state subject. So essentially, they're also getting away with this, saying that, oh, it's not in our hands, the state do it.
No, why not that? Not that. Why? I'll tell you why. Because law and order is a state subject.
Yes.
And therefore, law and order, they're linking it to public order.
Right.
But national security and other things are dictated by the center.
Absolutely.
So that, of course, the conflation that has happened, confusion that is created, the frustration that has happened because of mixing national security and protest, the various grounds that is given, public order and national security, sovereignty and all. I think this clarity has to come. There is a view that you cannot have very well laid out rules in this because these are not very objective things. The courts have to intervene.
Can I
just 1 minute. But the point is, you may not have the rules, but you can always have the principles. All these are principle-based systems. Even the Personal Data Protection Bill, I have always vouched that it should be a principle. Okay, a harm has been caused, and therefore it should be a harm-based model.
Yeah.
Now I think Vrindaji is here, all the lawyer Prashantji, and many. I have been telling it to even others because, of course, I am an advocate myself, never practiced, but I'm just started because after leaving bureaucracy. But I'm just saying this is, I think, is the crux of the problem. Is allowing people to interpret it in any way they want.
I want to.
Meghnaji, I'll just take 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I was generally looking at internet shutdown everywhere, and this facade of national security. I would probably expect Prashantji or Vrindaji that please move to the court, even the higher court, and ask whether the security of the government is masked under national security or the insecurity of the government, number one. Number two, I wish to underline through your forum that world over, democracies have got enriched, emerged better, more matured if they have engaged with protests. Because protest, many call it a social movement. I mean, I'm talking about the progressive ones. Now, a farmer sitting on your border, I mean, he is bringing certain issues. So I believe that much more of political clarity as well as legal intervention is required. That's all, Meghnaji. Thank you so much.
So I just wanted to interrupt to read out a comment that I got on YouTube. The wonderful powers of the internet. While we are talking, we can also interact with the audience right there. So Apurva says that cutting off internet is like cutting off electricity or water. It shouldn't be done under any circumstances, especially when they are promoting digital India. It's crippling the system. Now, I actually wanted to come to this point. It's a very important point that as the internet becomes much more pervasive in our lives, as our rights get more and more dependent on this service, I just wanted to take just a general outlook of the panel on this. Should there be a law which makes it like an absolute thing that the internet just should not be shut down, like electricity and water, right? Should it be a should the internet be considered a fundamental right because so many other rights are dependent on it? So I would like to just get like a quick overview from the panel. Yes, I'll come to you, Dr. Patnaik. I'll just go to Vrinda, Prashant, Fahad, and then I'll come to you. Yeah, Vrinda, quickly, if you can just tell us that.
You just want me to respond to this, right?
Yes. Should the internet be a fundamental right, and should it not be shut down?
Yes,
it is always a fundamental
it
right.
should be a fundamental right.
It is always.
Whether it can be shut down in any circumstance, well, you have sections in the Constitution, for instance, relating to emergency, which can be external aggression or internal disturbance. That high threshold, I would imagine we could have some discussion whether in those circumstances there could be a process by which internet for a temporary period with reasons can be shut down, not the manner in which it is done today. So yes,
Right.
perhaps so this is just an off-the-cuff remark. We need to have a further discussion, but definitely equate it. Let us remember that people get rationed today by putting their thumb impression because of the God-forsaken Aadhaar. If you don't have internet, you don't get rations.
Yes.
So this is a right to life issue here.
Absolutely. And also, as Fahad also earlier pointed out, that if I'm a student today and the pandemic is going on, my whole education is dependent on the internet.
Yeah,
and
so
if it's
try getting a COVID appointment for a vaccination,
Absolutely.
etc. So your right to health, everything is demolished in one stroke.
Yeah. Prashant, do you want to weigh in on this one question? Where is Prashant? Is he there? Or I can go to Fahad then. Fahad, do you want to?
I think absolutely not. I think it's of course it's like having drinking water and electricity because everything is on internet and it is going to be more and more. Everything is going to be dependent on internet. So absolutely not. I don't think it should be shut down.
It should not be shut down, or it should be shut down.
It shouldn't be shut down.
It shouldn't be shut down. Yes. Okay. And I would like to go to the again the parliamentarians, Professor Jha. But I want to add a little bit to this question here. He says that it shouldn't be shut down, but why isn't there any political will in this direction also? If you can also add to that, other than my first question.
I'll tell you very frankly, Meghna, there is a political will. There is a, I would say, sizable chunk of members of parliament who believe that you have to broaden the ambit of right to life. When you broaden the ambit of right to life, you don't even have to debate. For instance, I'll tell you, I teach in Delhi University. Of late, I have been taking my classes through internet. There have been two occasions when I have not been able to connect. And Amarji would know. Recently, there was a new pipeline, lines were drawn here in Pandara Park. We are neighbors also, me and Amarji. Now, that day, my helplessness, and it does not match the helplessness of Fahad or an average Kashmiri. That I think should be the guiding principle. Second, I also believe that internet shutdown, more often than not, is a kind of cover for the government for many murky things, like brutalization, oppression. This happens. So, in a way, information dissemination is blocked. You say that public order. I believe in the name of public order, you allow the animal instincts of the state to go berserk. Finally, my argument in favor of no internet shutdown, and I would draw from what Brindaji said. Your constitution provides two threshold level. That's enough for you. You don't have to devise a new mechanism. And I believe that somewhere in this age, when many social movements are dependent on internet, We call them new social movements. Now, new social movements, you try to cut the entire tree. You stop democratic participation. And in the name of preserving the democracy, as I said earlier, I repeat, the insecurities of the government are given the name of national security. That's it, Meghnad. I join you, no internet shutdown.
Amazing.
Meghnad, am I audible now, Meghnad?
Yes, Prashant, if you want to go ahead.
Sorry, you asked
you
about
got
the
my
right
question?
to access. Yeah, you asked about the right to access the internet. In fact, we
Yeah.
were part of a judgment of the Kerala High Court. This was with respect to rights of girl students to access the internet, called the
Yes.
Fahima Shireen was the state of Kerala. The Kerala High Court very clearly stated that the right to access internet is a part of right to education and right to privacy. It may be on a restricted canvas of the right of girl students to access internet, but it is definitely important for an internet shutdown debate also.
Absolutely. Dr. Patnaik, do you want to also answer that question?
Yeah, my answer is that yes, internet access should be a right, but as with any fundamental right, there has to be reasonable restrictions. Even in electricity that you talk of, whenever there is a storm, we see it in Odisha all the time, these lines are shut off. And that is by a public announcement made by authority from the Electricity Regulatory Commission of every state. And that's precisely what I'm trying to say, that we need to have regulation clearly stating, or at least stating the principles where the reasonable restrictions will be exercised to cut off internet, and public order should be defined, these national security conditions, what will be the mechanism in which that will be invoked. These things are still very discretionary for the executive, discretionary even for the courts. And I think it is not nice, because the courts are after all made also by human beings. And I need not elaborate further. So the point is, I think we need to have regulations. Keeping it completely hazy is creating a problem. So just like electricity that you talked about, there are very stringent provisions in the Electricity Act. If you want to shut down for outages for various things, they have to take a permission. The utility has to take a permission from the Regulatory Commission, give a time frame within which it will do. The Regulatory Commission exercises the judgment as to whether it is necessary. For example, it's a repair and maintenance, but you can't do it arbitrarily. In fact, I would say that the Electricity Regulatory Commission is even it can go a step further by saying that if there is a violation of these conditions given by the regulation by the utilities, what is the kind of compensation that you are giving to the electricity subscribers? The moment you bring that in, you will have more responsibility by the utilities in utilizing the time that is given to them for shutting down electricity. And similar things should apply to the internet.
There is one very interesting comment by Ashlesh here. He says we can't make vague laws and leave it to the principles of those in power, because such laws are bound to be abused. I think Dr. Patnaik, what you said matches with that. I'll just take a last bit of comment from Brinda, actually, then we have to close this. I'm very sorry because we are running out of time. But Brinda, if you can define these extreme situations, right? So like very clearly, I think we need to understand when internet can be shut down, if it can be shut down. I am of the belief that it shouldn't be under any circumstances, but I know that's not possible. There have to be reasonable restrictions. So can you just tell us what kind of law is required and what sort of reasonable restrictions do we need to put in?
Actually, the reasonable restrictions are already there in Article 19.2. In fact, I think there are too many restrictions in Article 19.
Yeah.
As we grow,
I agree, Vrita, I agree. But like again, like as the comment said, like those are very vague. So a lot of things can be mentioned in this.
So I think one thing we need to keep in mind that the state actually does not even adhere to that level of vagueness. Let me give you an example from Kashmir, because I think it's important to understand the practice of the state. So let me give you this example from the order passed on 4th August 2019 in Kashmir, the title of which was Shutdown of Landline Services. And the order was very small. In view of the apprehension of misuse of data services by anti-national elements, which is likely to cause deterioration in law and order situation, you are directed to shut down the landline services in entire Kashmir Valley except airport. with immediate effect till further orders. How does data affect landline? It's mind-boggling. And you are saying law and order. Law and order is not a restriction of Article 19. And this, on the basis of this order, for over 100 days, landlines were shut down. So please understand, the state exercises power with impunity. Therefore, the issue of guidelines and regulations. Now, some of which has been defined, clearly it is not measuring up in experience of the Republic and the experience of the citizens. Therefore, I agree with the co-panelists where they are saying these have to now be regulated much more. But in the regulation, my only apprehension is that if the regulations are being drafted and crafted by the state, do you want that Pandora's box to be opened at this juncture? I would hesitate. So therefore, what we need to constantly is to build a public opinion where any breach of right has to be an extreme exception, and the state must be penalized each time it breaches that. And that, I'm afraid, courts are not doing. In fact, in Anuradha Bhasin, I asked the court to set down guidelines, and that prayer was totally ignored. So
it was ignored, as in like they didn't respond, or they just didn't comment on it.
Well, they didn't comment. I mean, the court writes the judgment. So we do. I think this is an exercise that citizens should undertake.
Absolutely.
We should undertake this exercise to saying only in these very exceptional circumstances can you do this kind of closure of internet. And secondly, the review committee cannot consist of the secretary of different ministries. There has to be a different voice. It's not
there has to be judicial civil society voice.
The bureaucracy is not representative of the people of India.
Correct.
And Vrinda's whole speech, if it's a tweet, it should end with #DigitalIndia. I'm going to end this panel right here. We are out of time. Thank you so much, gentlemen and lady, for doing this with us. Fahad, I hope you continue to be with us as long as the internet is with you. So more power to you. And thank you so much for joining. Thank you to the audience for joining and commenting as well.
Thank you so much.
Stay on for the next panel. I think there is another panel after this. So, yeah.
Thanks, Meghna. Thanks, everyone. The next panel is tomorrow on 16th. So I'll just wrap it up. As Meghna said, it is a kill switch for a lot of rights, especially fundamental rights. And which is why we are very thankful to our panelists and Meghna, and as well as to the team of SFLC for continuing the fight for our fundamental rights, and also for taking time out today for this panel discussion. We would also like to thank News Laundry, our media partner, for this event, and a special mention to the team at SFLC for pulling out this amazing website and the documentaries, as well as bringing together this event. Please do not forget to check our website and let the network. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.